Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I have never been to this branch, and it's beautiful, by the way. I'm Jenny Duez. I'm with the St. Louis Area Foodbank. I am a registered dietitian and nutrition and wellness programs coordinator. So I basically operate our nutrition programs at the food bank. If you're not very familiar with the St. Louis Area Food Bank, we serve 26 counties, 14 in Missouri and 12 in Illinois. So we're a warehouse distribution center where the food is packaged and stored and then distributed out to our over 500 pantries throughout our service territory. So it could be pantries, soup kitchens, residential facilities, things like that. So over the years, we have really shifted from focusing primarily on food insecurity to really focusing on nutrition security. So making sure that we're setting our partners and our neighbors that we're serving every day up for success, long-term success, not just immediate emergency food, really being able to source and distribute foods that meet their dietary needs, foods that meet their cultural preferences and their personal preferences. So with that, I've been doing a lot of education in the pantries, in the community, at the food bank in general. So once a month, I host workplace wellness and partner wellness trainings and community wellness trainings as requested, which Shelby had reached out. So I am happy to be here. This is one of the trainings that we were working on as far as nutrition and dietary changes as we age. So we are going to start from the very beginning, going through the entire life cycle. I know it will more so apply to you guys for once we get to the older adulthood and just general adulthood. But if you have any kids in your life or grandkids or teenagers or adolescents, you're going to get to see all of it. So we're going to start from scratch. If I can get this to go forward. Hold on. What's your name? Jenny. Jenny. Yes. Why is this not moving? One moment. There we go. Okay. So just a little icebreaker. So are there any foods that you did not like as a child, but you like now? Or are there any foods that you enjoyed when you were younger, but you do not enjoy any longer? Just kind of brainstorming there and thinking about what kinds of foods.
I didn't like stuff like cauliflower, tomatoes, and broccoli.
Veggies.
I eat all that stuff now.
Yeah.
I eat it raw.
Good. Anyone else? Spinach. Yeah.
I can't taste anything anymore since chemo, so I'll eat anything.
Yeah. All right.
I eat healthy.
There you go.
Yeah, tomatoes, I couldn't get enough as a kid, but now I can leave them be if I like.
Yeah. Our preferences really change throughout. And I have two young kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm learning how quickly the preferences change and the taste buds and everything. And it continues to happen throughout our life. So one of the examples I have is I've always hated pickles on anything, but then when I was pregnant, I really liked pickles, and now I like pickles. So it's just odd. I don't know. Okay, so we are going to start. Why? Okay, these are just the learning objectives. We won't read through them all together, but we're going to talk about the different stages of the life cycle, proper nutrition to prevent development of that chronic disease and conditions, physical activity, as well as physical changes that affect nutrition status of older adults. And this is informal, so if you have questions or comments throughout, just shout them out. So preconception, again, I said we're starting from the beginning, so more so if you know anybody in this stage of life, this is what we're talking about. So healthy diet and lifestyle will improve pregnancy outcomes. So if somebody is trying to conceive, limiting the alcohol, focusing on a healthy diet, trying to manage stress. That's one of the trainings I do at the food bank is nutrition and stress management, which I try to do once a year since that's applicable to everyone. All of these things, medications can affect the ability to conceive a healthy baby. So in preconception stage, they're looking for focusing on antioxidants like vitamins and minerals, vitamin D. For women, iron typically needs to be on point, and then zinc for men, and then limiting that alcohol, soy, caffeine, and heavy metals. And then pregnancy and lactation. So again, if you know anybody in your life that is currently pregnant or a new mom, this is more so related to them. Maternal metabolism. So changes to metabolism occur within the first several weeks of conception. We want our nutritional needs to increase to support that fetus. So a lot of times, if you have ever been through this, you get hungrier and you need more energy to support that baby. Energy needs increase during lactation. So with milk production, you're burning an extra 500 calories a day. So you need to increase your energy for that as well. And then physical activity. Pregnant and postpartum women should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week. A lot of people are scared to do that when they're pregnant, but it's actually very beneficial for mom and baby. So it helps reduce disease risks for mom and baby and too much weight gain, blood clots, etc. Infancy. Does anybody have babies in their life in here where this would be applicable? We got a few. Okay, good. So main sources of energy for infants are going to be that human breast milk or formula until 12 months of age. Fed is best. Whatever works best for mom and baby is great, but breast milk is obviously ideal as far as nutrition goes, but formula is a very, very quick second. So semi-soft to solid foods can be introduced when the baby shows signs of feeding skills, which is usually around 4 to 6 months. Depends on where they're at, if they're sitting up, lots of different things. Every baby is different. So gotta look for those signs. Slowly introducing allergenic foods is really important. So they recommend to introduce like peanut butter, eggs, allergen-friendly food or allergen foods or as early as 6 months, because it has been shown to reduce the risk of developing allergies later on. So that is something that they do recommend, obviously spreading them out, not introducing peanut butter, eggs, and soy all on one day. That would not be a good idea. But spreading it out and seeing how they react to it has been shown to be helpful. And then the health and nutrition of a baby can be measured by dirty diapers and growth rate, as we know. With that, they are focusing on fluoride, iron, vitamin D, sodium, and lead. They say that all kids 5 and under should avoid drinking those flavored milk, toddler formulas, plant-based non-dairy milks, caffeinated beverages, and sugar and low-calorie sweetened beverages. Juice is a big thing for kids. They recommend trying to split that with water, just limiting that sugar in the diet for small children. 0 to 6 months, again, it's just going to be breast milk or formula for proper nutrition. 6 to 12 months is when you can start to offer water as well for babies and other soft solids. 12 to 24, yep.
What is the source of lead? For some reason, I always associate lead with paint.
Yes, that's one of them as well. I don't actually have a list of the food. I might have it. Where is it in here?
Consumer Reports that dark chocolate can have.
Yeah, excess. Yeah, that's a good thing. That I would have to look that up for like the exact sources of that. It's very hard to get, but they check that, just during pregnancy and infancy as far as specific things that would lead to that. Hold on one sec. Yeah. So, so lead pipes and lead-based paint are going to be the main sources, but too much of that is toxic to the brain and the nervous system. Usually you're going to get exposure from older homes a lot of times. So like if you're living in a home that's older, there's that risk for that. I used to work for WIC, and that was something that we checked for in, moms and babies, was the iron and lead.
I guess I was just questioning like this under.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it would be more so lead in the system that you might be getting from environmental factors. Yes. Well, that too. Yeah. Being aware of the home, that the environment you're in. But yeah, they start screening for that between 9 and 12 months of age. So, and then 12 to 24 months is when you can start bringing in that whole milk. When I did work for WIC, I saw a lot of babies that were given, almond milk or something like that right after breast milk and formula. And they really recommend whole milk because it's the closest to formula and breast milk. And they really need that for brain development, continuous brain development until at least 2 years old. And then 2 to 5 years old, milk and water trying to be the go-to beverages, trying to stick away from those excessive sugary beverages that we all love. Just a little food for thought because I love fun facts. But if our bodies allowed us to grow at the same rate as if we were babies, then we could be as tall as 6'7" by the age of 5 or 22 feet by the age of 21. And this is looking at like when a mom is carrying a baby, how fast that baby is growing. That's what that would be if that continued after birth. And so we'd all be very, very tall, but obviously things kind of die down but we'd be as tall as a female giraffe, which is the tallest reported land animal. As we know, our taste buds from around 30 weeks, we form taste buds around 30 weeks in the womb. And so a child quite literally can develop food preferences based on what their mom is eating. So that's interesting as well. So maybe one of my kids liked the taste of pickles, and that's why I liked pickles when I was pregnant. I don't know. So, do we have any toddlers and preschoolers in our lives in here? A few of us. How's that age going for everybody? It's a good time. That's my life right now, currently. Yeah. So this is the age where they're going to begin using those spoons and forks and really get those motor skills going. Bite-sized foods and semi-soft textures are going to be important. Picky eating becomes a big thing at this age. You can offer a variety of foods often and repeatedly. They're not going to eat a lot. They're going to be more of grazers. It's going to be, I'm like, how do you fit so much in that little tiny stomach? But it's because they're eating tiny amounts just very, very often. Food allergies can begin to develop around these ages, which is why, again, it's important to introduce those allergen foods so early. And then food habits and learned behaviors. So you want to start those healthy habits of mealtime and just building healthy relationships around food, starting that early. Nutrients of concern for this age group is going to be vitamin D, which we had questions about in the last session that I did at the other library, with sources of vitamin D being very difficult, since obviously you can get that from the sun, but in food, you get that from that whole milk, and you can get that in some produce items, but it's very hard to meet the recommended vitamin D needs for any person. So getting those levels checked is really helpful. But that's, again, why it's really important around that age, at least up until 2, to have them get that vitamin D whole milk in their system. Calcium, B12, and physical activity, which usually there's not a problem around that unless we're on our tablets all day, but nothing wrong with tablets either, because sometimes you just need it. School-age children and pre-adolescents, 17.7% of children ages 6 to 11 are obese. And so a child's food choices are often influenced by the family environment, by the school, by the peers, taste preferences, the media and the internet. Everything is online these days. Everything is digital. A lot of influence come from social media these days. So really trying to focus on the macronutrients, which are going to be carbohydrates, which we should never be afraid of. I know there's a lot of fear mongering around carbohydrates in any age group, but we need them. They should consist of about 45 to 65% of our diet. Just focusing on those good, healthy whole grain carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, brown rice, things like that. Not the refined carbohydrates like pastries and desserts, which are not bad either, but we just need moderation with those. Fat should be about 25 to 35% and protein 10 to 30%. Okay. School-aged, again, iron, zinc, vitamin A, and calcium, and focusing on that 60 minutes per day. With the screen time in the digital world that we're living in now, we're finding that less and less with kids because they would rather sit on their tablet or they're not. And also in this day and age, when I was a kid, the rule was go play outside all day and come back when the street lights turn on. I was like, cool. And so I was just running around the neighborhood all day. We can't do that these days. It's just not safe. And so unfortunately, a lot of kids are on electronics instead of playing outside all day. Adolescents, we have the largest growth experience during this time. Our nutritional needs will drastically increase. I don't know if any of you have some always hungry teenagers in your life, but it's because the nutritional needs are increasing. Meal skipping and snacking becomes more common. Soft drinks provide about 45% of the diet. And the teens report food preferences, accessibility, cost, busy schedules, and social support impacting. A lot of teens are out and about and, might just have access to fast food or their friends are eating that, or convenience stores. It's all about peers when you're that age. So with that, they need to focus on calcium as well because they are continuing to grow, iron, vitamin D, and folate. And then physical activity, again, moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity each day. So this is what you guys came for. I tried to go through that part real quick, relate it as much as we can if you guys have, little people in your lives, but what do we want to do for you? So above 50% of American adults have one or more preventable chronic disease. Between the ages of 20 and 64, lifestyle choices like diet and smoking and exercise and social forces and genetics, a lot of times, environmental factors, as we know, can impact our quality of life. So our body changes with age and can be preserved, slowed, or reversed with a healthy diet and exercise. How many of you guys are experiencing changes with your bodies with age, and how so, if you don't mind sharing?
Bone loss.
Bone loss, that's one of them right there. Loss of bone density. Anyone else?
I could go that last one.
Mm-hmm. Abdominal, the central adiposity. Yeah, so loss of muscle mass, hearing loss, vision decline, hormone reduction, increased abdominal fat stores. So that's all something that everybody is going to deal with at some point, but there are ways to kind of manage that as we get into adulthood and older adulthood, which we'll talk about. With that, nutrients of concern for adulthood are going to be fiber. That's a big thing when I talk about carbohydrates, choosing those good sources of fiber, like those whole grain products, fruits and vegetables, the apples, everybody, like the core of the apple, the skin on a potato, that's where all the fiber is. And that's what's really going to aid with digestion and really help with keeping our bowel movements healthy. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, magnesium, potassium, sodium, choline, and iron. Physical activity, obviously, it can get harder as we get older, but trying to get anything that you can in. I always say, it says 2 hours and 30 minutes per week, 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise. That doesn't have to be all in one setting, like looking at your steps throughout the day. A lot of times if I'm working in the office at the food bank, just getting up from my desk and walking to the other side of the building to go to the bathroom or go to the supply closet or something, trying to find ways that I can move throughout the day can be really helpful to get that in there. It doesn't have to be a programmed activity, which can be intimidating for a lot of people. Yes.
What do you define as vigorous versus moderate?
It's going to be different for everyone, but yeah, moderate intensity aerobic, I would think like walking on the treadmill or like getting your heart rate up slightly. Vigorous, I would assume like really running hard. But it's gonna depend on what's vigorous to you. What's vigorous to me might not be vigorous to you. Does that make sense? Like you can kind of start with a workout and it could be like, oh, that was vigorous because I don't typically work out. So it would be whatever's getting your heart rate up. You want to get your heart rate up because that's what's really going to help with the cardiovascular health management. So that's the hard part and that's also kind of the cool part is it's individualized. It's whatever, I'm not a runner, so I don't like running, but I love swimming. So like if I were to run on the treadmill consistently, I would be huffing and puffing and that would be vigorous for me. Whereas somebody else might do a mile and no problem. So it's whatever you feel it is.
But it's not just getting your heart rate up, it's keeping it up for so long.
Keeping it up, yeah. Keeping it in that zone. Yeah, just focusing on keeping it in a specific zone. And there's lots of different methods that you can kind of look into that and more of a physical activity, recommendations for that. But
you don't have to run.
Nope.
I have a stationary bike at home.
Nope, you don't have to run. Biking, elliptical, walking is a great form of cardiovascular aerobic exercise. A little bit of incline if you can take it, that's great as well because that gives you that strength. And with strength training too, it says perform muscle strengthening activities 2 or more days a week. That's really going to help with that bone loss and bone management. The difference, both aerobic is great and strength is great, but aerobic, you get done with a walk or you get done with elliptical, you get done with swim, whatever, you're done burning those calories after that workout. And it was a great workout. Strength training, no matter what amount of strength you're lifting for however long you're lifting, you burn calories for up to a few hours after a strength training session. So that's what's really going to, if you're looking for fat loss, there's no food that burns fat. There's just not. That's one of my diet culture trainings I do. There's no foods that burn fat. Consistent strength training and exercise, that's what's going to burn fat. So trying to keep it a good mixture of aerobic and strength training is really going to help with that. The science of healthy aging. So how our nutritional needs are increasing with aging due to specific chronic diseases. So with aging, lean body mass decreases over time by about 2 to 3% per decade from the ages of 30 to 70. Loss of muscle with gain of fat has the biggest effect on nutritional status and physical function. And then our taste, smell, and appetite will also decline with aging. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. And my mom is a good example of that. She just turned 70. And she says the same thing. She can't eat a lot at once. Like she eats such small little meals. And she's like, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. I don't really eat very much. My appetite is so small. it's like she'll be really hungry and then she'll still just have a little bit and then she's full. So it's just interesting how that changes. Has anybody else dealt with that as far as appetite? Making sure I'm not missing anything from the video that is on here. Okay. So basic tips for older adults when it comes to nutrition. Protein. Protein is going to be really important. So you're wanting to focus on eating more seafood, beans, peas, lentils. Those plant-based proteins are going to be really great because there's going to be lots of that saturated fat that's going to be not as great for our heart health. So I love making stir fries too at home, getting the staples from the grocery store like beans or lentils or chickpeas or whatever. I actually just did that the other day and making I did a taco kind of mix with some taco seasoning on there and it was really good. Eating enough protein from high quality sources. If you are going to eat meat, lean meat, milk, eggs. Anybody vegetarians in here? No. Good deal. So focusing on the meat ones then. Proper amounts of, that's something we joked about in a training last week too, is how vegetarianism isn't always healthier. You can claim to be a vegetarian and eat chips and fries all day, technically, so focusing on those high quality meats. Meat's expensive now too, though, but, focusing on those high quality meats when you are eating them. Proper amounts of protein will help maintain our muscles and bones and prevent that bone loss that some of you have said that you've experienced with aging. Improve wound healing and immune system. So a lot of times protein needs are going to differ based on a lot of things. It might depend on your body weight, how much you're exercising, you're going to need more protein. If you have had surgery, people that have wounds or are healing wounds on their bodies are going to be needing more protein for that healing. So again, that's all individualized. Yes.
I have a question about milk.
Yeah.
Because now there are so many choices, 1%, 2%, so is there a particular number, like 2%, 1%?
It's depending on what you're looking for. So if you're needing to limit the fat content, that's what that is with milk. So calcium and the protein in the milk is all going to be the same among skim, 1%, 2% whole milk. It's just the fat content that changes. So like whole milk, you don't want to drink it's full fat. So you don't want to drink that in excess. It's great for kids, that are up until 2 years old because it is good for the brain development, but they typically recommend skim through 2%. So it's just, if you have like heart disease or if you're needing to manage your fat content, then you're going to want to go for the skim or the 1, but it's like a 2 to 3 gram difference. It's really not between, skim, I think I remember this from my WIC days. Skim is 0. And then 1% is like 3 grams, something like that. And then 2% is 5 grams. So it's really not a crazy difference.
So it has to do with the calcium or with the fat?
With the fat. Yeah.
So all of them have the same calcium.
The calcium and the protein in milk is all going to be the same. So that is great. It's just if you're needing to limit your fat, if you have, heart conditions or you're on a heart healthy diet, they might recommend skim or 1%. But yeah, it's solely fat. Reducing disease risk. So you obviously adding those fruits and vegetables as meals and snacks. It's also a good tip for this is as you're getting older, as some of you have said, your appetite's gone down. It's helpful to do smaller meals and snacks throughout the day, maybe eat every 2 to 3 hours, just smaller portions. That's been found to be more helpful. And as we know too, I always give the example of if you wake up in the morning and you have a big bowl of cereal, let's say, you're usually going to be pretty hungry pretty quickly after because that's really just carbohydrates. And depending on the cereal, it might be sugary carbohydrates and you might not have satiety for very long. So they recommend pairing carbohydrates with protein or fat. So, eggs are a great source in the morning. It's also the Olive Garden pasta house kind of thing. You have a big bowl of pasta when you go out to dinner and it's delicious and you can't stop eating. And then you go into a food coma after and you can't move and you're like you're miserable. And that is because you're eating and your blood sugar is spiking and you're like, this is great. I love my life. And then it crashes and you're in a food coma. And that's what we want to avoid with really all meals, because that's diabetes, prevention. You don't want your blood sugar going up and down. So really trying to pair your carbohydrates with fats and proteins, apples and peanut butter. nuts and seeds and yogurt, cheese and crackers, whatever it might be, trying to pair those two. And then you'll find yourself feeling fuller for longer too, where you're not running to a fast food restaurant or running to the convenience store because you're starving. Let's see, choose foods again with those little to no added sugar, saturated fat, or sodium, because those are most linked to chronic disease. That's something we started doing at the food bank with a new nutrition ranking system that we're doing with what we're sourcing and distributing. We're really trying to source and distribute foods that are lower in those nutrients. Obviously, we will never decline a donation or say no or anything like that, but really trying to source more of the nutritious foods that can help people manage their chronic diseases, because research has shown that a lot of the folks that do come to the pantries or live in low income communities or are struggling with poverty are more at risk or have already been struggling with some sort of chronic disease. So we're wanting to set them up for success. It's already hard enough to come to a food pantry and there's a stigma behind it. So we want to give a broad selection that they can choose from. Hydration. How's hydration going for everybody? Is it harder to drink water, get enough water in, or do you feel like that's pretty similar? Does anybody hate drinking water? No, we got water drinkers in here. Okay. So yeah, water is great. Low fat or fat-free milk, lactose-free or fortified soy milk, 100% juice, fruit juice if you're going to drink juice, and then limiting those drinks with added sugar. If you do struggle with water intake, helps to add some fruit into your, like cucumber or even just any berries. I like adding berries into my water. A lot of fruits and produce have water as well. Was it you that said you was spinach? Do you like spinach now?
I like it now.
Spinach is like 80% water. So that's the one vegetable I can get in the smoothies when I make them for my kids, because they can't taste it and they don't know what it is. So I'm just like, it's fine. It's just part of the smoothie. It's how it's made. So I get tricky with it sometime, but that's also giving them nutrients. And then just general recommendations, making eating a social event, having meals with family and friends. I feel like a lot of times we've become a very go, fast-paced society. A lot of us eat on the run, or we forget to eat, or it's just very fast-paced. I know for me, I'm like eating as fast as I can so my kids don't steal my food. Like sometimes we just got to settle it down and enjoy a family meal and get back to the celebration of eating and get back to the enjoyment behind it, and not so much. It's obviously good to think about our health and think about how we can help and nourish our bodies, but it's also just to enjoy the food, enjoy eating, not think so much about the caloric. Yeah.
When you make smoothies with vegetables and fruit, does it in any way affect the fiber?
No. So not if you're blending it together. Like it's different if it's because I'm using whole fruits and vegetables in my smoothies. It's different with, a lot of those detoxes and cleanses out there like Juice Plus, and I don't know, not there's probably other ones I don't even know of nowadays. I have no idea. Yeah, you want to use your raw fruit. Yeah, because like I said, like apples and just the whole fruit, that's where you're going to get that fiber.
Question on milk. Can you substitute almond milk? And
yeah.
Are you still getting the calcium?
The calcium should be similar in almond milk. I would have to look at the exact numbers. It's the fat. So like the almond, obviously, like the fat and the saturated fat is going to be better. So but that's why they don't recommend that for kids. But for adults, yeah, I mean, as long as you're still getting the calcium from that and other sources.
And does any kind of liquid equal drink water often?
No. Like, I mean, water is pretty much the ideal recommendation. What liquids do you mean?
Coffee.
It's a beverage, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's like to hydrate you, but
What about like herbal teas?
teas are good. I mean, those are good for like calming and things like that. I'm trying to think of, I mean, really when it comes to hydration, yeah, I mean, if you do juices, they recommend, the water with the juice or kind of watering it down, putting fruit and vegetables in there. But like that goes towards your liquid intake. Yes, it doesn't necessarily go towards your hydration. Because I love my coffee, but I don't really feel hydrated after I drink it. I feel delightful after I drink it, but yes.
And your thought on those, where they advertise, you can chew this one thing and it has 1,700 vegetables or whatever.
Gosh.
What's your thoughts on that?
I feel like that's a waste of money. It depends too. It really does depend. So if you're somebody that struggles to get your fruits and vegetables in every day, like you're like, I don't like eating fruits and vegetables. I just don't know how to prepare them. I have no way that I like them. Maybe that's something that could be beneficial for somebody that has that struggle. But ideally, fresh fruits and vegetables because of that fiber and because of the nutrients, because I don't know how that was processed either. And usually it's very expensive and it's not really necessary. But I mean, it could be for somebody that does, like I said, struggle with that. I think it's just become more so of like a marketing trend than it's not necessary. And that's kind of how the gluten-free diet did that for a long time. Or people were like, oh, I'll go on a gluten-free diet so I can lose weight. And they're like, gluten is, bread and wheat, and gluten is a protein. Gluten is a protein in those things. So if you eliminate gluten from your diet, you're not going to lose weight. It's just a protein in a substance. The reason people usually lose weight on gluten-free diets is because they are typically eliminating those highly processed foods, those fast food items, things like that. So same thing. I mean, I feel like everything has kind of a marketing scheme behind it when they're trying to sell you products.
What was the question?
Like little gummies for fruits and vegetables, like detoxes, saying buy this, thing of you get 6 servings of fruits and vegetables if you eat these 2 gummies every day. That's the different things. You're much better off just going out and getting even canned, frozen, canned, or fresh vegetables or fruits. The nutrient content is all the same. Sure, they're processed differently. Canned, you probably want to wash them off a bit to get that extra sodium off of it. But the nutrition content in that is the same as fresh and frozen. So much better off. Yes.
What is your feeling on vitamin supplements and minerals as opposed to getting it from food?
Food first always is my recommendation. Vitamin D is the only one that I kind of feel like it's really hard for anyone to meet that recommendation through just food alone. So that's something that, if you do get, blood work and things done every year, that would be interesting to see where you're at with that. And that might need supplementation, but that's another market that it's a money-making market for a reason, if you can get it through food first, which a lot of those you can, then I wouldn't think it's necessary. I think that vitamin D really is the only exception because it's very hard for people at any age to get enough vitamin D through solely food. Some people can, but it's a good question. I'm working on a training solely around like supplements because I get a lot of questions about those. I think I don't know what slide this is, but yeah. So like we said here, the vitamins that we talked about, nutrients of concern, focusing on B12, A, D, E, and K, potassium, which fun fact, an avocado, a half of an avocado has more potassium than a banana. So bananas are always given the big potassium thing. Avocados are a great source of potassium. Sodium.
Bananas are cheaper.
What'd you say?
Bananas are cheaper.
True. And the avocado, the worst is when I'm like, I think it's about ready. And then I cut it open and it's brown. I'm like,
I know.
Gotta be perfect. I love avocados though. If you do like avocados and you get them often, a great breakfast, a great healthy breakfast is cutting the avocado, taking the seed out, putting an egg in the little holes of the avocado and baking them. I think it's like 350 for 15 minutes or something. So good. So good. And it's a very nutritious, you'll be very full after and satisfied. And it's not like a high carbohydrate refined breakfast. It's very nutritious. So then, yes. So physical activity for older adulthood, focusing on muscle strengthening that involves all the muscle groups on 2 or more days a week, whether it's joining a gym and doing it through workout classes or, workout machines, or using your body weight, doing it at home, using videos, whatever you need to do that is great for you. 150 minutes of moderate intensity. So moderate being whatever moderate is to you, where you feel like you're getting your heart rate up, you feel like you're breaking a sweat, you feel like you're getting a workout in. That is what I would consider moderate activity. And that can be, again, doesn't have to be consistent. It can be getting your steps in throughout the day, various times. It doesn't have to be all in a programmed activity. Encouraging that water consumption during exercise as your thirst may be diminished, and ensuring adequate protein for muscle building. Yes.
So what is adequate protein?
So again, that's going to depend on each
Is there a
person.
rule of thumb to figure it
So
out?
0.8 kilograms per body weight is the average recommended protein intake for like the average adult. So that would be, I haven't done this math in a hot minute, have you? So that'd be like, I'm just thinking of like, I'd have to get a calculator out, but like 150 pound person times 0.8 is going to be how many grams of protein would be recommended for an average adult. So if you have a surgery or you're coming out of the hospital and you have a wound that you're healing, that might be more like 1.2, 1.3
Is it per pound or per kilogram?
per kilogram. Yep. So again, it's going to depend, and it's going to depend on exercise level. So a lot of that.
Weight times 0.8,
Mhm.
and that tells you how many
Grams of protein.
you have
Your weight per
throughout the
kilogram.
day.
Yes,
Okay, your weight in pounds. 'cause I don't know how-
your weight in pounds.
Okay.
Let me just do that real quick to make sure that I'm saying that right. Let me do my math real quick so I'm not giving wrong information. Just going to do it.
I usually just give the example, like, if you weigh 100 pounds, that would be like 80 grams.
Yeah. That's what I just did. So like if you were 150 times 0.8, you want to focus on 120 grams of protein per day from various sources, which would about, because they say protein is about 10 to 15% of your overall diet, which based on a 2,000, none of us really eat close to 2,000 calories a day unless we're more like athletes, but you probably do. But that's the standard, 2,000 calories a day. So 0.8 times whatever your 8 is the recommended. And then if you're exercising more or less, just aiming for that. Oh, that makes sense.
Anything with fiber, what are they suggest?
Ooh, 20 to 25 grams. Do you remember that one?
20, 30.
Yeah, 20 to 30 grams. Yeah, fiber, I believe, is 20 to 30 grams, 20 to 25 maybe for women. I'd have to look up the exact things for that. I might have that in here. Hold on. But yeah, can get through those fruits and vegetables easily. I would focus on getting that through, those whole grain sources, fruits and vegetables, rather than that. They obviously have like bars. You can buy like fiber bars and things, but with any bars or things like that, look for the sugar on the back because they can really sneak that in there. And same thing with anything that says like low fat or low whatever. Look at the ingredients to make sure that it's actually claiming it is what it is. A lot of things that might say whole grain or whole wheat or low sugar, their first thing on the back is the opposite of that on the ingredient list. So that can be tricky.
Isn't it true that if you look at the list of ingredients, they're in the order of how much,
Mhm.
like the highest content
Yep.
is the first thing?
So it always makes me laugh when something says low sugar and then the first ingredient's sucralose. It's like, well, that's a sugar substitute. Or that's how you can really tell if something is whole grain too. It might say something opposite. So, because they can put whatever they want on the front of a package, like whatever health claim they want, but the ingredients won't lie. Marketing is a tricky one with food, with our food system. Okay. You want to do this part? So this is this is one of our many, we have like a pantry to plate library at the food bank of just simple go-to recipes that you can use with a lot of food that you might find in a food pantry. This one calls for white rice, but brown rice would obviously be more fiber, would be more of the nutritious choice, but white rice is fine. It's just more of the refined.
Could you also
Grain there.
substitute something like quinoa?
Yep, sure can. Yep, you can substitute in any way you can. If you don't like celery, green peppers, or carrots, you can substitute for other vegetables.